Bollection is back, bitches.
Okay, don't listen to this guy. At least not the last word.
Okay, sorry about that. Just excited. I'm your host, Kevin. This is my wife.
Aileen.
And thank you for tuning in to Briterion Bollection. So we're kind of getting a late start on this, but in honor of Women's History Month, we wanted to stick to all-female directors, right?
And mostly female cast, if not all.
Okay, yeah, mostly female cast. And we wanted to start it sooner, but, we had had a few setbacks. You got sick, right?
Yes, I was sick for way too long, so pardon the delay.
Sorry.
But I wanted to make sure that I was a lot better before we could record.
Right. And so for this Women's History Month, I'm excited because we're going to kick things off with a great film. It's a film called The Kids Are All Right, directed by Lisa Cholodenko.
Don't start.
I know you love this damn movie, right?
Yes, I do. As white as it can be, I still like it.
You said as white as it can be, right?
Or as white as it is, I should say.
Okay.
So, also, pardon my grammar or pardon the way I word things. One, English is not my first language, for those who haven't noticed. And also, my brain tends to be scrambled around at times anyway, so.
That's okay.
And also, disclaimer, I have a lot of snacks because having been sick, I did not have much of an appetite, and now it's coming back and it's craving a lot of things, so you'll hear or see things, so maybe you'll even get some ASMR included.
Great, thanks for the warning on that. So The Kids Are All Right. This came out in 2010, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm kind of surprised we didn't see this in a theater, right? But
I don't know how it didn't come about for me, but I'm surprised that you didn't catch up on it earlier.
Yeah, I think I had a similar feeling like you had with Napoleon Dynamite. I think I saw the trailer and it was like being too indie. It was like being too cool. So I was just like, I don't know if I want to see it. Like I felt like it was trying too hard, kind of. So that's why I think I avoided it initially.
You mean like Imaginary Heroes? I feel like Imaginary Heroes was trying too hard. Yeah,
like trying way too hard to be indie and KCRW-ish, you know what I'm saying? So I just kind of avoided it for that reason. But then I think my sister randomly rented it from Blockbuster. That's when Blockbuster was still around, FYI. I think my older sister randomly rented it and she was kind of like, oh, it's kind of good, check it out, or whatever. And then I was just at home, not doing anything. Popped it in, and as I started watching it, I was like, "Oh, this is kind of funny. This is funnier than I thought. Like, this is better than I thought." And then afterwards, I think I showed it to you, right?
Yes, not long after, actually.
Yeah. So then I showed it to Aileen, and you really liked it, and you liked it a lot more than I thought you would. Like it's a movie you like to revisit often, right?
Yeah. Well, part of it is that I do like the humor behind it, and I like the overall content that it's I guess it involves an unconventional family, so.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, this movie came out in 2010. What were we doing? I know I was working at Target, and we were still going to a lot of concerts and stuff like that. That was the first year I ever went to Coachella. I know you had been before, but that was actually my first year going.
That was my second year.
And that might seem kind of stupid, like unrelated to the movie, but no, not really, because a lot of bands that year are on the soundtrack of this.
Yes, they are.
So it is kind of connected. Music is really connected with this, and like I was saying, it's a KCRW movie. It really is. Like even the music supervisor is from KCRW, so it just has that white. Topanga Canyon,
I thought it was Laurel.
Laurel Canyon, whatever. Some canyon in LA.
Yeah, well, they're not that far away.
Liberal.
They're not that far away from Central LA.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like the textbook KCRW movie. which and I'm a fan. So, so speaking of which, I did a little research on Lisa Cholodenko. So she is from a liberal Jewish family from the San Fernando Valley.
Well, Russian Jewish, as far as I know.
Okay, yeah. Maybe she knows the Haim girls, the Haim family. She received a bachelor's in anthropology and ethnic studies from San Francisco State University, where she was a teaching assistant for Angela Davis. That's pretty cool,
huh? That's a pretty high profile.
She has more like black connections than I thought. So okay, assistant with Angela Davis, and then well, you know what else she did?
What?
She was an apprentice editor on Boys in the Hood, the movie.
Wait, are you trying to say that she's not as white as I think I am?
No, I'm just saying like her being so white and Jewish, she has these like random black connections. You're saying that I didn't expect. I didn't expect her to work on Boys in the Hood.
I feel like she still makes pretty white movies.
No, she does. She does, but I'm just giving her some street cred.
She's still white.
Okay.
That doesn't change much.
All right. So here, let's go to our cliche Wikipedia description. Can I do that?
Absolutely. I always go on Wikipedia to look up stuff anyway, so
great.
That is mandatory.
Okay, good. I'm glad I have your blessing with that. Okay, so Nicole, Nick, and Jules Allgood. That's the last name, Allgood. But not everything's all good, right?
No, well, that's the ironic thing. Which I actually know someone by that last name. And that's a very weird person, which I could get into that some other time, but yeah, keep going.
Save that for your personal podcast.
Yeah. If that ever happens.
Hey, I'll help you launch it.
Okay, we'll see.
So Nick and Jules Allgood are a married lesbian couple living in the Los Angeles area. Nick is an obstetrician and Jules is a housewife who is starting a landscape design business. Each has given birth to a child using the same sperm donor. Nick and Jules' 15-year-old son, Laser, wants to find his biological father, but as he is too young to request that information from the sperm bank, he enlists his 18-year-old sister, Joni, to contact them. The sperm bank identifies Paul Hatfield, a restaurant owner, as the donor and shares his contact information. So that's a pretty good description.
Yeah, I feel like it describes it pretty well.
So the Universal logo pops up.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. Anytime a movie is released for Universal, I definitely wait for that moment as soon as it opens.
What are some of your favorite Universal movies?
Well, my favorite of theirs is Scott Pilgrim, for sure.
And you love the intro 8-bit music.
Oh, that's my favorite one.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, yeah, I think Scott Pilgrim has the best Universal logo play with thing,
Yeah.
And then Focus Features, we see that company come up, and they had a good run at that time in the mid to late 2000s. I mean, they did arguably another great film is Eternal Sunshine from that.
That's a
but they also
one.
did like I Heart Huckabees, and not as good, but they had a kind of a good run. At the time.
Well, since you mentioned Eternal Sunshine, Mark Ruffalo was also in that movie.
Exactly. So he's the tie that binds Eternal and kids and the Focus Features connection. And then the opening song we hear
is Cousins by Vampire Weekend. Yeah, which they actually beat me to it. I actually would have liked to use it myself for another project, but at which I don't even see that project happening because it's already an idea by a big company, which I hope that Sanrio hire me someday. I highly doubt it'll happen, even though that is a wish of mine.
You never know. Shoot for the stars, you might land on the moon. So, but it's funny that it opens with Vampire Weekend Cousins, from the second album. Because there's another movie that opens with a Vampire Weekend song from a couple years before that, right? With a song from the first album.
Oh my goodness, right? Don't even get me started.
Which is another one of your favorite movies, which is...
Oh no, I don't know if I would call this one a favorite, even though I do find this movie pretty funny a lot of times. You're talking about Step Brothers, right?
Yeah, of course.
Oh my god.
Come on, you love that movie. You said that's one of your top comedies. And it is
But
one of mine
but
too.
you said it first.
Well, I mean, I do love that movie. But what's funny, similar to that movie, we see two dumbasses fucking around at the beginning of this movie too.
Oh,
One of those dumbasses is Laser, played by
yeah.
Josh Hutcherson, right?
Yeah, if you know him from Hunger Games. I'm not the biggest Hunger Games fan, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
You know why? Because they ripped off Battle Royale.
Which, by the way, if you haven't watched Battle Royale, that was great. I just saw it in Mexico City at Cineteca Nacional last year during the summer. Oh my god. That was like the best thing that I could have done. And it was during Movie Fest, no less.
Yeah, Mubi. M-U-B-I.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Lucky.
Hey, you should have come with me.
Well, I should have, but who's going to watch these guys? Who's going to watch this guy?
Oh, we're talking about our stray cats.
Yeah, exactly.
Next time, let's just hire a sitter.
My sister.
If she's willing to. Which
Yeah.
I'm sure she is, but,
Yeah.
I don't want to bother her too much.
We could probably, do that next time. So yeah, we see two dumbasses fucking around, and it looks like they're making a Jackass video. That's kind of what it looks like, right? They're on
Yeah, I would
skateboards.
say a shitty version of Jackass,
Yeah.
because at least
That's
Jackass
saying
was
something.
successful.
Yeah, and that's saying something, because first seeing Jackass is pretty hardcore.
Pretty
It
bad,
was DIY as hell. They're knocking down trash cans. What's the stupid friend's name?
Clay.
Clay.
That's why I remembered, because I know at least one Clay, or at least I know that's his middle name, and there's just something off about
Yeah.
it.
And his name is Clay because he's so malleable. No, I don't know.
No, I highly doubt it.
Okay, and then so we see his lifestyle, and then we see the sister's lifestyle with her friends, playing Scrabble or whatever.
Yeah.
Joni and the Indian kid, her friend. And then we see Zosia Mamet, who's like the slutty girl, like the
Quote unquote.
the nerdy slutty girl of the group, kind of,
How are those two tied
I
together?
don't know. I mean, nowadays anything goes. I mean, that was already a while ago, but still. And then we see the stupid skater kid. He's like snorting some shit, like some pills or something. He's like, dude. And then they're like wrestling in front of his dad, and he's like, hey, move out of the fucking way. Like the dad, like he's trying to watch football or something, and
Get
the fuck out of the way. And then his dad comes in and kicks his ass.
But didn't he snort like some sort of like?
That was some pills or something. Right?
Was that pills? Oh.
Yeah, he like crushed them and snorted them.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So, and then we finally see Annette Bening and Julianne Moore, and they're the main couple.
Yeah, so they're Nick and Jules, respectively.
Yeah, of course. Julianne has to play some variation of her name, right?
I don't know if that really was intentional, though.
Okay, all right. So they're the couple, and these are their kids, Laser and Joni. And Julianne, Jules, she mentions that she buys a truck randomly because she's starting a new landscaping business, and Annette Bening's all surprised, like looking at her like what? Like that's the first time hearing of this. It's kind of funny. And then Clay calls Laser during dinner, and he walks away, and they kind of find it rude.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because anytime anything involves Clay, of course, Laser will interrupt anything to be the role for him.
Yeah, exactly. And do you like Julianne Moore's Elvis Costello shirt that she wears in that?
It's like, I do like it. At the same time, I do feel it is kind of pretentious.
It's kind of heavy-handed, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, kind of the status of the kids, like Mia, she's 18, right? And
yes.
like she just graduated high school, right?
She just graduated high school. She's starting college later.
So this is that little summer, interlude. And it's funny, so Jules and Annette Bening are in bed, and
well, you mean Nick.
And Nick, sorry. Yeah. Jules and Nick are in bed, and one of them suggests, do you want to watch a movie? And she's like,
a movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so she puts on this gay man porn, as Laser calls it later. So, I think it's Jules. She does some deep sea diving, right? Like she's under the sheets.
Yeah, you can already imagine. Let's not get into details, but just Try to
You
imagine
hear
that.
some vibrating going on for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm painting a picture. I'm setting the scene for people. And then do you like Mia's Bonnaroo shirt that she has there? Is that another?
Yeah, but that's also pretentious.
Yeah.
I don't know anything that's just tries to set off as hipster. Yeah, I feel like it's just a little too hard.
Well, that's partly why I didn't see it in the theaters, because I could see little things like that, and I was like, no, this is just trying way too hard. But the movie just ended up being a lot better than I thought. So the gay porn movie is on while they're trying to get it on, and it's just kind of funny because Nick is like, oh, I don't like the guys in this one. They're too shaved or whatever, and Jules is like, don't focus on it. And then she accidentally turns up the volume hella high on the porn.
Was it because she accidentally leaned on the remote?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Yeah, and then Mia's like looking through documents about the sperm donor, and she kind of hears like, "What the hell's that?" But she kind of like shrugs it off, like she doesn't like follow the sound or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then as she's looking for the documents of the sperm donor,
wait, you said Mia, you meant Joni, right? Well, because Joni is actually played by Mia Wasikowska. Yeah. Which I don't know if that was mentioned previously, but
no, Mia Wasikowska. She's great. She's she was obviously in Alice in Wonderland, and she did a lot of great work. And she's kind of, I don't know, I think she wants to live a normal life kind of nowadays. That's why she's not doing as much. But I would love to see her back because I think she's great. So while she's looking through the documents for the sperm donor, she sees a picture of a little boy, and she's kind of like puzzled by that. And that's where we enter Ruffalo. Okay.
Oh my God.
We cut and we see his pretentious ass Laurel Canyon lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? There's some chick who looks like Erykah Badu. She's like the hostess.
I don't know if she looks like her, but maybe she's trying to kind of give up that vibe.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And he's doing like farm to table shit, like literally. He's like
another pretentious thing.
Yeah, another pretentious KCRW
I'm going to
twist.
I'm going to drift off a little bit here, but it kind of reminded me of the second season of You, because that's what they try to depict a lot there too.
The Erewhon.
Don't even get me. Speaking. Speaking of Erewhon, yesterday I saw on Instagram the stupidest thing Erewhon could be doing, which I actually follow people who like Erewhon, and I respect it, but I feel that they take their whole thing too far. Yesterday, I learned through Instagram that they sell $20 strawberries, like a single strawberry, not even like a 1 pound of strawberries. It's just one single strawberry and this quote unquote fancy ass capsule, and I'm just like, who would even buy that?
Yeah. Those Erewhon people are smoking crack.
I agree.
To me, that's Strawberry Fields Never right there.
So. That is so sad for the Beatles, by the way.
That's Beatles wouldn't charge that much for that. That's more than a Beatles vinyl record back in the day.
Oh my God.
Even now, maybe. So we see Ruffalo, and he comes in with like his farm to table shit, and he's like, I've been hoeing all day, and the chick, the Erykah Badu chick's like kind of laughing at that. God. You've been hoeing all day.
I wouldn't even call her that, but...
Okay, I forgot what her name was. Do you remember?
I actually forgot it, believe it or not.
Okay. So he gets a random call from the sperm bank asking if he did a sperm donation back in 1993.
Oh, between 91 and 93.
Between 91 and 93, yeah. And it's just funny how he's like, yeah, I did a little bit of that. Like,
but it's just kind of like, okay.
He says it so like nonchalantly. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, well, it's kind of stupid actually.
Yeah, and then we see him hook up with that chick, the hostess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty graphic. They get it on pretty quickly, and she's actually a pretty funny actress, actually. And we kind of see later on, we see little things that she does that's pretty funny. Then we see Mia, Joni, and Jules playing Scrabble, and Mia gets a call, and it's from Ruffalo,
No, from Paul.
Yeah, okay. Joni gets a call from Paul, and she asks if they can meet, and he's like, yeah, sure. And then she like warns him. She's like, oh, my parents are lesbians, like FYI. And he's like, okay, like he's
like, I like lesbians.
He says, I love lesbians. Yeah, it's
weird, but
yeah, it's just funny. That's just typical classic Ruffalo, classic. And so I guess they're on the way. They're driving to see him or whatever, and she's like, Laser's really looking forward to it, right? But she isn't.
Yeah, because he's the one who convinced her to reach out to the sperm bank and search him.
Right, like she doesn't want to at first, and he's really
she's reluctant, but he's like really, like he's pushing her. Yeah. He's pushing her.
And she's like driving. She's like, he donated sperm. That's weird, And she's driving, and then Laser's like, well, if he hadn't, we wouldn't be here. So respect. That's what he says.
Okay. Well, they could have easily picked somebody else. It didn't have to be him.
Yeah, well, some things are meant to be. Some lesbians are meant to get sperm from Ruffalo.
Paul. Let's focus on the characters, not on the actors. Okay. Because the whole thing is that here we're talking about the characters. We're not talking about the actor. Okay. Because the actor is just portraying the character.
Yeah, but often, sometimes like the actor kind of, their lifestyle kind of entwines with,
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm just focusing on, because to me the character and the actor.
I'll try to stick with the character names. Bear with me.
And bear with me because I'll be correcting you every time.
Okay, that's fine. So they meet and it's kind of awkward. He keeps like nodding his head, kind of.
Yeah, and they don't know what to say.
Yeah, exactly. And then he's like, Laser, cool name. And it's just kind of funny because Laser's such an athlete, and Ruffalo is not. He's like,
Paul.
Yeah, Paul is not. Laser's like, did you play any sports or whatever? And he's like, well, I used to play a little b-ball in middle school. And he's like, is that it? And he's like, well, yeah, I mean, the whole team thing, it just kind of, he's like, kind of got, too much for me after a while, it's like, I think he says like too fascist or something like that, and he's like, well, what about you? And then Laser's like, well, I pretty much play all team sports, so like you can see right off the bat they have like nothing in common.
Yeah, exactly. They're very different.
Yeah, and he explains what he does. Like this is my restaurant and this is like my farm. I'm really big on local produce and stuff like that. And then Joni's like, well, she's really into it. She's like, I've been trying to get moms to buy local for ages or whatever. And then like Laser looks at her like, what the hell is that about?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was like in Audition when the main guy is like really into that one chick and the other dude looks at him like, what the fuck? What the hell are you doing? Yeah, we're right into that. Then we see Paul rides motorcycles. He's just such a cool badass. He thinks he's like in Black Rebel Motorcycle Club or something like that. And, they kind of awkwardly hug at the end. They kind of like, it's awkward. It's funny. And they drive off and, Joni's like excited. And she's like, what'd you think of him? And he's like,
he's all right.
Yeah, he's all right. And she's like, all right, like you're the one who wanted to meet him. It's like, he's all right. Like it's just funny how right after that it twists.
Yeah, saying, of course.
She's really into him and he doesn't really give a shit about him. Because I think he disappointed him not liking sports at all. Considering that's like his main thing. And I guess they're watching Locked Up Abroad, Nick and Joel's like when they get back or whatever. And that's like their thing. I never got into that show. I don't even know what channel's on. I kind of wanted to see it because it sounds interesting, but I never actually got to see it.
Mm-hmm. I never got to see it either.
And then here's another pretentious shirt alert. We see Jules rocking the delicious vinyl shirt that she has. If you guys don't know what that is, that was a label. Uh, late 80s, mid 90s. They produced a lot of good hip hop. Initially, it was like Tone Loc and Young MC, which wasn't that cool. Those were hits, but they weren't that cool. But like later, it got better with the Far Side, Master Ace. They had a lot of good. I mean, and their Far Side's second album. That's really the intro of Jay Dilla. That was really the first album he had really worked extensively on. So you kind of got to thank Delicious Vinyl for Jay Dilla if you're a Jay Dilla fan.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a LA label, which was different at the time because hip hop was from New York, so it was like a LA label doing underground hip hop.
Yeah, and also talking about Delicious Vinyl, one thing that they also did was that they opened up a pizza spot, right, called Delicious Pizza.
Yeah, I want to try that sometime. We haven't tried it yet.
I know that they were serving it at a music festival that we went to, but it was like $12 a slice, and it was a pretty small slice too. And that's why I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to pay that much for such a small thing.
Maybe we'll go to their actual spot sometime.
Which festival was it?
Might have been.
It was Just Like Heaven, maybe?
Yeah, it might have been that. Yeah. So Jules and Nick, they're kind of thinking about Laser and Clay, and they're kind of speculating if they're gay. It's just.
I mean, they try to bring it up to Laser's subtle, like in a subtle way, but.
Yeah, like Nick brings it up to Jules, and she says something kind of like, "Oh, like I feel like he's not getting his life together," or something like that. Like, and then Jules like pushes back. She's like, "I feel like there's some subtext here, like mother like son. Or we haven't lived up to our potential." And Nick is like, "What the hell are you talking about?" it's very funny. And then so the hostess chick, who he banged earlier, asked Paul how it went with the kids, and he's like, "It was great, the girl's really cute, really sweet, and the boy, he's like this sensitive jock, kind of, and then like the hostess is like falling for him, she's like, you're so cute," like she uses that as an excuse just to say that, and then this white hippie chick with dreads comes in, who works for him too. She was like in his field picking strawberries, and so she comes back and she's like, "I thought you should have the first taste," or whatever, and then he eats it, he's like, "It's good," or whatever, and then she walks away, and then the hostess says, "I thought you should have the first taste of my pussy."
Yeah, but she sounded very mocking.
Yeah, exactly, she's trying to mock her, but then Paul's just like he kind of laughs it off, like he thinks it's kind of funny. But that was a good line. That's why I'm telling you that she's pretty funny, the actress who plays the hostess. So Clay and Laser are kind of looking around the house, and Clay, I'm sure this is really Clay's idea. Like he is looking around, he's snooping around, and he's like in the mom's room.
Yeah,
right?
he storms into Nick and Jules' room.
Yeah, and Laser's kind of like, "Come on, let's get the hell out of here, dude." Like, but it's like the peer pressure.
He tries to tell him like, "Hey, like we're not supposed to be here."
Yeah, the peer pressure of having him as his friend, and he doesn't want to push back. You know what I'm saying? So, and then Clay finds a vibrator, and he's like, "Ooh, look at this!" And he throws it. He throws it in Laser's face.
Yeah,
right?
And Laser is very disgusted, which he should be. I mean,
and he's like, "Oh, what the hell?" And then he's like, "Oh, like they find a tape or whatever." And they're like, "This should be interesting, because they're expecting, maybe there's some chicks on here that they can see naked, right?" So they pop it in, and it starts off, and it's just this like 70s gay cop porn.
Yeah.
It looks like, it looks like the Beastie Boys Sabotage video, but with nudity, And they're kind of like, "What is this? Like, what's going on here? Like, this is a lot different than we thought this was going to be." So, it was a very interesting scene.
To say the least.
Yeah, to say the least. So then Jules comes home in the truck, and she sees a bike in the middle of the driveway, and she comes in, and she sees them watching the gay porn, because they're like watching it right there or whatever. And they're looking around like, whoa, like they got caught, and they cut to the moms. They have a talk with Laser, and they're trying to see if he's gay, right? Like they're trying to, suss out if he. So Jules catches them watching the porno, and the moms have a talk with Laser, and they're trying to suss out if he's gay or not. And they're kind of like, you can be open with us, anything on your mind.
Yeah, but they don't tell him straight up. They're kind of like subtlety, subtly
trying
to bring it
at
up.
All. Like,
but at first he's not picking up.
He's not getting it at all. And then they're like, "Do you have any questions for us?" And then he's like, "Yeah, well, I do have a question. Why do you watch gay man porn?" And then it's funny because Nick is like, okay, we rarely watch that movie. Like, we rarely, like, she's trying to make it seem like they have nothing to do with it. And then Jules is kind of like, well, human sexuality is complicated, and it can be counterintuitive, And then he asks like, well, wouldn't you rather watch women porn? And Joel's like, you would think that, but then they hire women who pretend to be lesbians, and the inauthenticity just takes me out. And then Benny's like, whoa, like stop, like don't get,
don't give out too many details.
Like you're getting a little too deep with this.
Yeah.
And so Laser kind of is like, okay, well, let me just say, he reveals that they talked to Paul.
Yeah. They came in contact.
Yeah. And they're kind of like, Paul, who the hell's that? And he's like, oh, our sperm donor. He's like, what? Did you think I was gay?
And they're like,
they flat out deny it.
Yeah, but then they're like, wait. It's like now they're wondering how he reached out to their sperm donor.
Yeah. And so they have a talk after that, and we see Nick drinking wine. Big old cup of wine.
Yeah. Well, which, by the way, so one thing that was noted before is that Nick is an alcoholic, and she will especially binge on wine when there is a stressful or an uncomfortable situation.
But I mean, we get to that though in little bits. It's not like that comes out.
Yeah, but it's good to note that beforehand.
Well, I kind of wanted to surprise people.
Oh. Sorry.
To get the little hints here and there, how it kind of slowly builds up,
Yeah.
So we see Paul on his motorcycle listening to Bowie, Black Country Rock.
See, that's cool. Pretentious too. Hey, don't get me wrong. I love David Bowie. I think he's great. Oh, which, by the way, speaking of him, last week I was at Albertsons shopping, and they suddenly start playing Suffragette City. But what really pissed me off is that someone starts speaking on the PA right in the middle of the best part of the song.
Which is?
The chorus.
Oh, okay.
Which, I love that song.
Yeah.
But, I just wanted to make a note of that.
Oh, yeah. That's a travesty.
Right.
Actually, in that song, I really like the little bridge breakdown part.
Oh, that's great.
Wow, man, thank you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, great song. But yeah, it's pretentious seeing Paul ride on his motorcycle listening to that. And so he knocks on their door, and he meets Nick and Jules, and he brings a bottle of wine, and, Nick opens that shit up big time. She pops it open, and they have lunch, and he's like pretentious to them. He's like, I'm a doer. That's how I learn. And
what is that supposed to mean?
That's something Nick, makes fun of him after the fact about, like, I'm a doer. That's how I learn. But she likes the wine that he brought though. So
yeah,
I guess. He impressed her with that. And then, he kind of was like, what do you guys do? Nick tells what she does, and Jules mentions that she had a business before, and she's starting a new business, and she's trying to explain it with the whole landscape design. And it's just funny while she's explaining it, the look on Benning's face, on Nick's face. The look, but I mean, I'm kind of talking about the actor, not so
Yeah,
much
no,
her.
but she's trying to convey what the character's supposed to be doing anyway.
Yeah, no, you're right. But like the look on her face as she explains it, it's like she, like she's like kind of ashamed of her, but letting her say it, but like she's hearing it and she's trying to hope it's not embarrassing to Paul. You know? Like it's a really good acting job by her. Yeah, she's a great actress, and she can say a lot just with like looks. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
she can
absolutely.
give a look, a reaction, and she can say a lot. And she's like gonna pour another glass, and Jules is like, "Honey, that's your fourth glass." You know, like this is really where the alcohol.
Absolutely.
Kicks in.
Yeah, I mean, she already had 4 glasses, and they're pretty hefty ones too.
Yeah, and yeah, she says like, "Honey, that's your fourth glass," and she's like, "Well, I wasn't really keeping score, but you are, so thank you for that." You know, like she kind of deflects it. And,
yeah, but that's such an alcoholic thing to say.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like she's bouncing it back to her to make her look stupid for keeping track. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then Paul, he's like, he's like trying to be a nice guy, so he's kind of like, "Hey, well, maybe if you're not busy, maybe I can hire you to work on my backyard." And Jules is kind of like, "Well, like, okay." Like, she doesn't have any other projects going on, so it's kind of like, "Hey, if this guy's willing to do it, I'll take the pay and I can build up my resume." You know what I'm saying? This is one project, but I can take pictures of this and show it to other people. And then afterwards, and even in the moment, Nick doesn't really like the idea, but then afterwards when they're together, like in the bedroom, like she mentions that she doesn't really like the idea. She's kind of like, "So, I'm gonna be working for Paul, eh?" Like,
Yeah.
And she's like, "Yeah, why not?" And she's like, "Have you heard of the term 'don't shit where you eat'?"
Yeah, but isn't she shopping for materials while she tells her that? Because I remember they were shopping.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where it happens. Okay.
Yeah, at some garden store.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then the whole "don't shit where you eat."
Well, she's like, haven't you ever heard the expression "don't shit where you eat"?
Yeah, I love that. You were saying you didn't get that at first, but
I mean, I just didn't get how that was how that saying came in that situation, but it makes sense to me now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so Jules goes to Paul's place, and it's really pretentious, and she's like kind of explaining how it should look, and she's like, we should have it like lush, fecund, and Paul's like, "Fecund, look, I love that word," like just like it's like he like falls in love with her, quote unquote. There, it's pretty pretentious.
Yeah.
And then we see Joni and Social Mammoth and the Indian kid playing Scrabble again.
Oh.
And she likes the Indian kid. She gives him like these like longing looks, but then she looks away and he doesn't pick up on it. Like he can't tell that she likes him. You know what I'm saying? Like he's just playing the game. He's not looking back at her seductively, and she's kind of like, he won't look at me, so she looks away. And so I think that's good. The editing of that. Obviously they kind of shot it in a certain way. I don't know if that was in the script, but like the editing was really good that they kept that in where you see her looking at him, but he's not looking at her, and then she kind of like drops it, and gets back to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Social Mammoth's like, "Oh, like your sperm donor's hot or whatever." So she's telling him and telling her, and she's like, "Geez," like, and they're kind of like making fun of her for just talking about sex all the time. And she because they kind of diss her for that. Mm-hmm. She's like, "Fair enough, Harry Muff." She says that and like runs out. And it's funny that we see Jules and Laser playing ping pong. Just a nice little scene between mother and son playing ping pong. And we cut and see Clay is gonna jump off a building or something on a skateboard. And,
he's jumping off a shed.
Yeah.
That's what we can see.
Yeah. And Paul and Laser, while Laser's filming it, and Paul's kind of like, "Geez, what the hell are these guys doing?" He's there for some reason. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Keep my shit in frame," or whatever. And so he's like, "All right, 1, 2, 3, action!" And he jumps off the shed, he falls, and he eats shit. total jackass style video, and Clay is hurt, and he's on the ground, and he's pissed off, and he's like,
you can tell he's pretty hurt.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
Like he's badly hurt.
Yeah, and Laser's like, "You okay, dude?" He's like, "Fuck!" He's like, "How'd it come out?" Like he doesn't give a shit. Like he doesn't care. He's like, "Fuck if I'm okay." How'd it come out?
Like he doesn't care about his injury. He wants to make sure that he came out good on video.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just kind of funny, and they drop off Clay at his house, and it's funny that Paul's like, "Oh, like I don't like him. I don't like the way he treats you." And Laser's like, Clay just gets a little amped sometimes. You know, he's like defending him kind of. And then what Paul says, that's not amped. That's being a tool. So yeah, just kind of funny that he calls him a tool. And Laser's like kind of curious like about his sperm donations. He's kind of like, you know, how much did you get paid for that? And he's like, $60 a pop.
Like, well, I don't know if he really sounded that sure, but I think it was more like I think it was like $60 a pop.
That's just funny how he says it. He says it like it's
yeah,
like he's buying an ice cream bar or something like that.
Yeah.
You know. So Jules comes home and Nick draws a bath and candles, and that's kind of how they end the day. We see Jules in Paul's kitchen, and they kind of talk a little bit, and you kind of see them bonding a little bit. Like,
yeah, pretty strong bond, if you ask.
You see where it's like heading, kind of, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of getting close, and then all of a sudden, like, we see the Mexican worker guy come out.
Oh yeah, which by the way, they hired a Mexican like gardener, which is pretty much what you would refer to as something.
Yeah, he's hilarious, and he kind of checks in on them, and he kind of keeps lingering around, like he's kind of like smiling, looking at.
Yeah, he's being pretty nosy.
Yeah, sure. And it's the look on Joel's face is kind of like, get the hell out of here already. You know, just wants to kick his ass out already. It's kind of funny.
But he just makes excuses because he comes around and asks her dumb questions like, "What do I do with this, señora?" Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. And then, so Jules and Paul, they're kind of going to say goodbye. You know, they're like, they kind of greet each other, and then they just end up making out. You know, they end up kind of making out. It kind of reminds me of Flirting with Disaster, I guess, the movie with Ben Stiller and Téa Leoni. Like, they kind of bump heads, and then they start making out randomly. Kind of reminds me of that.
I've never seen it, so now you sparked my curiosity.
Okay,
so
maybe we'll try to find that.
Okay.
I think it was that movie. So yeah, they kind of make out, but then she backs out, kind of like, oh, where the hell did that come from? You know, he's like, oh, like, yeah, this is wrong. No, sorry, we shouldn't be doing that. No, like, whoa. And so she goes back home, and Nick asks her how it was with Paul today, and she kind of says, you know, we mainly talked, you know, like she doesn't mention the making out, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, she would have wanted her finding out.
Yeah, and then Nick is like, oh, like, I thought he was a doer, you know, like, she kind of, like, says something like that, kind of dissing Paul.
Yeah.
And then Jules is like, lay off the Paul digs, like, she, like, defends him, and she's kind of like, okay, like, where'd that come from? Since when do you like his ass? You know what I'm saying? But I think she feels there's something kind of suspicious even at that moment. Like, why is she defending him all of a sudden, you know? And then we see Clay and Laser, they're walking, and they see a stray dog, and Clay, like, wants to pee on him or something like that. Like, he's, like, trying to unzip his pants or whatever.
Is that what he was trying to do?
It looked like it.
Well, I thought he was trying to do something even.
Oh, I don't know what the hell he's trying to do, but
the point is that he's about to he's about to unbuckle his pants.
Yeah, and Laser's like, dude, what the hell are you doing? Like, stop! Like, you know, he's trying to, like, you know, have him stop, you know, doing whatever the hell he's trying to do to the dog, and Clay's like, why are you such a? That's what he asks him, and that. Yeah. And Laser's like,
he pushes him.
Yeah, he pushes him. Yeah. And then Laser kind of gets up, like, why are you such a dick? And then Clay punches him in the face, right?
Yeah.
And then right in that moment, you kind of see what Laser kind of gets it, what his moms have been saying, kind of there, right? You know, so he just kind of like walks away, and I don't think you see Clay in the rest of the movie, right? Like,
No, I don't think
yeah.
so. I think he's just gone.
Yeah, he kind of
afterwards.
that's like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Which I'm glad because I did
Yeah.
not like Clay.
Yeah,
At all.
so I think that's like that was a finally light bulb moment for Laser. Like he finally got what his moms have been trying to tell him about Clay. And we see Joni riding on the motorcycle with Paul, you know, and he takes her back home, and Nick sees Joni like coming off the motorcycle, and she runs out and she's like Pias, like she tells Joni, you know, hey, what the hell are you doing, you know, and
it's like we talked about not ever getting on a motorcycle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She's hella pissed, and then Joni kind of talks back to Nick, and Paul chimed in with something, you know. Yeah. He's like, hey, you know, let's chill out, you know, and he's like, oh, I'm just making an observation. And Nick says,
it's like, I need an observation like I need a dick in my ass.
She says, I need your observations like I need a dick in my ass. And just like, you're just like, okay. And I think Paul was like, you know, he was weirded out by that, but like, okay, like I guess I need to know my place then, you know. And we see Joni, I think she's listening to Fever Ray When I Grow Up.
Oh my.
That was cool.
Yeah, cool and pretentious.
Yeah, and pretentious. But we saw Fever Ray at Coachella that year.
Yes,
right?
we did.
2010. That was a great show. That was a great performance.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites, honestly. And I loved that album. When that came out, I was really into that album. And then, you know, I already knew about the Knife, but I kind of did more of a deep dive after that. I was like, oh, I need to like get every Knife album. You know what I'm saying? So, like, yeah, even though I already was familiar with them, I was like, oh, I need to go back and get Silent Shout and, you know, the first album.
Cuts.
Yeah, deep cuts. Yeah, great. Exactly.
Which, by the way, I could not find that vinyl anywhere. I ended up finding it at some record store in Monterrey.
So yes. That's where we bought it?
Yes, that's where we bought it. Yes.
So I thought we bought it in TJ.
But... No, not even there.
But I think they had it after that. Like,
after the fact. But but that was the first place where we ever found it. Really.
But that always tends to happen. You're always like looking for something, you can never find it, and then you find it like in Timbuktu, and then all of a sudden they have it where you live. You know, like they have it right down the street, and you're just like, damn it. Just Murphy's Law, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then we see Paul. He's like on his balcony, and he looks down and he sees Joel's like working in the yard, and he can kind of see her panties, and he kind of smiles at that, like.
Oh well, yeah. The thing is that she was bending over and she was wearing a thong. Yeah. And and of course he was staring at her.
Yeah, and he kind of, you see him smile though as he like kind of he kind of steps back, and then the old Mexican guy is like asking her a question or something, and then he's like, okay, and then he's like, you see him about to walk away, and then all of a sudden he looks right up at Paul,
and he tries to shrug it off like he wasn't even looking.
Yeah, he's like, whoa, like, it's just funny. It's a funny little cut. But that's why I mean, this movie's it's hilarious. Like, it's probably her funniest movie, I think, as far as Cholodenko. Laurel Canyon, I don't think is as funny as this.
No, I don't think so.
And definitely her first film was like more serious. It wasn't a comedy at all. And so right after that, Jules goes up to see Paul, and she said she wants to clear the air, and she defends Nick kind of, and she was saying, that kiss was weird the other day, and then all of a sudden they just start making out again, and
like they got too tempted.
Right, yeah, and she says, "Oh, I have a guy outside," and then they keep making out again,
until they go into the bedroom.
Yeah, and she takes off his pants, and they get it on. And it's kind of funny because we have the Blu-ray of this, And so, like, right in the middle of them getting it on, it, like, freezes. So.
Yeah, that's what's been weird about the Blu-ray. It wasn't doing that before until recently.
Yeah. Come on, Criterion. I know you guys
Release it already.
Yeah. Wow, where's the Cholodenko love? Yeah, but yeah, it's funny that our Blu-ray freezes right at that moment, so that we see her naked on top of him. Just gets stuck there. But when I see that, it kind of makes me think about, like, I feel like Julianne Moore does a lot of kind of sexual parts in a way, like in her career. She's almost like the female Michael Douglas or something. Because I feel like Michael Douglas, every random movie he did always like infused some sexuality to it.
Yes, I've noticed that too, and it's something that we don't need to watch that much.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about the movies that she's done, I mean, Boogie Nights, this, May, December, yeah.
And May, December, that was very disturbing actually, which if you haven't watched it, I wouldn't highly suggest it, but if you want to look more into the backstory, yeah. I would say I was maybe slightly disappointed by that movie, but I'm glad I watched it at least once.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it could have been better, but it was alright. So, like, while they're getting it on, all of a sudden you hear, Senora! Senora! And she's like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Paul's laughing at that moment, and she comes out of the house. She's barefoot, and you see that. You see her bare feet.
Oh, yes. You see her bare feet, yes.
And the Mexican guy kind of sees that and thinks this is kind of weird, and he's like, where do you want the stones? And then he just has this cheesy smile, kind of,
Well, but it's more of like a silly, awkward smile.
Yeah.
Like he even looks kind of giddy.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then she's like, I'll be back. And he's like, take your time. Yeah, like he smiles like he knows
like
something's up.
He already knows what's going on.
And it's just kind of funny. And we cut and we see Laser and Paul playing basketball, the basketball game horse. And Laser's asking him random ass questions, and he's, it's like getting to know you type of chit chat, and he's sounding like he asks Paul, like, would you rather be buried or cremated? And like he's just asking him these, big life questions. Like I'm sure people ask that question often. And I feel like that question kind of is like controversial in a way, in the sense that like people, you can look at it, one of two ways. You know what I'm saying? Would you rather just, people look at people who don't get cremated like, oh, you're just taking a space in the land, kind of. You know what I'm saying? Whereas people who are cremated, they kind of look at it like, people who get buried kind of look at it like, oh, like if you're cremated, like, you wouldn't have, people don't, can't visit your gravesite or can't, they don't have your body around. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, I think whatever that person's wishes are,
just go with that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it matters ultimately.
Yeah. And so we see the kids are like having a dinner at Paul's restaurant, and even Zosha Mamet is there, and she's asking stupid questions to the hostess chick. She's like, "Are you from Africa?" We see her ask that.
Yeah, it's just really dumb how they try to portray her like she's just like this, the like sex crazed ditz.
Yeah,
that's really.
Yeah. So yeah, they're having the farm to table food, and so the kids are there, and then we see Jules and Nick having dinner with their friends, somewhere else. And we see Nick wanting more wine, and she's like, "I'm getting more wine. Like anyone else?" And her friends are kind of like, "Whoa, like no, like we're good." Like they kind of emphasize how they want to stop, and it's like Nick is like offended, kind of. She's like offended that no one's drinking with her, kind of. You know what I'm saying? And she feels like, damn, am I overdoing it or what? Like if these guys are tapping out now, like I must be overdoing it, kind of, And so we see, like Nick says something like, she's like, oh, like you guys like, she's kind of upset by that. So she's like, damn it, like, I don't want to hear about heirloom tomatoes and composting and shit like that. Believe it or not, she's kind of the most hardcore of everyone in this movie. Like, you know what I'm saying? She's like, if you want to, I'm not saying she's MAGA, but she could be the most MAGA of anyone in the movie. You know what I'm saying? In the sense that, like, everyone else is like a pussy to her. You know what I'm saying? Like, she thinks she's like, really straightforward. You know what I'm saying? So they get into an argument, about having the wine and stuff, and Nick just walks out. Like, she walks out, and then Jules feels like she has to, like, kind of go after her. And that it's funny because the couple that they're with, the lady is like, oh, what should we do or whatever, and but the guy he's like calm. He's like just give her space, like, give her time. Like, I like how calm he was. So they're kind of arguing outside, and Nick is like blaming this on Paul. It's like because it's fucking Paul's fault. Like, he's taking over my family. She's like, she's hella pissed off at that. And so they have this, real argument, and they're really telling the truth. Jules says, like, she doesn't feel supported by Nick, and Nick's like, what do you mean? Like, do all this crap for all your stupid little hobbies that you get into, I support you on all this crap, and that's Jules just is also really upset. So the next day at Paul's, they're getting it on again, and the Mexican guy outside, he knows that they're doing something up there. So when she comes out, she's like, well, why are you smiling or whatever? And he's like, oh, like, I'm not smiling. He's like, I have allergies. And she's like, well, why are you a gardener?
Yeah, why are you a gardener if you have allergies?
And he's like, because I love the flowers. Funny. And she's like, well, you know what? You're fired. Get your ass out of here. Like, she fires his ass. It just like that. And, I kind of feel bad for him, It's not his fault that they're boning.
It's not his fault. At the same time, I feel like he was being kind of nosy. But I do feel bad that she did fire him. I feel like she was too harsh. Yeah,
exactly. So then after that, Nick and Jules are, hanging out, and Nick is like, I think maybe Nick in her head is like, maybe I've been too hard on Paul, so let me try to, like, stick out an olive branch to him, So she suggests, like, oh, let's have dinner at Paul's, get to know him better, and she's like, okay, like, all right. So I guess they kind of coordinate that, next time, I guess that Jules is at Paul's. Jules is like, let's let's end things. Like, I don't think we should keep doing this. And Paul's like, yeah, it was fun while it lasted. All things must pass.
And cut to, and it happens once again.
Naked in bed, post coitus.
Thank you for the detail.
And Paul kind of, leans over to her and is like, he tells her, like, I think I'm falling for you. Jules is like, don't. Like, she's like, oh my God, and so right after that, we see Jules taking a shower there.
Yes, at his place. Yeah,
at his place, which is important to note.
Yeah.
And so he's at the restaurant. We see him there, and his hostess kind of keeps flirting with him. She's like, oh, we haven't had one of our sessions in a while. We haven't had one of our sleepovers. She kind of suggests that, and he's like blowing her off, and he tells her, he's like, you know what, like, you're great, you're sexy, but I don't think we should keep doing this. Like. He's like, I really think I should settle down with someone kind of more serious, He's like...
And, he's even saying, like, I'm thinking about starting a family.
Yeah, exactly. And she could see, like, her face just, like, droop while he says this.
Yeah, like, you could see a huge disappointment.
Yeah, and then she kind of just walks away, and then you hear...
Fuck you.
Yeah, and he's like... Like, it's like he doesn't know what to make of that, So we see Nick comes over to Paul's garden, and she checks out the work that Jules has done, and she claims, she's like, "Oh, I love it." She's like, "It looks great." She claims to love it. I don't know if she really does, but obviously she wants to be supportive. She wants to seem supportive anyway.
Yeah.
And Jules mentions, "Oh, I had to fire that Mexican guy because he had a drug problem."
Well, I think it was because Nick asked about him.
Oh yeah. She's like, "What happened to that guy?" Or whatever. Yeah. She's like, "Oh, I had to fire him because he had a drug problem."
She just made something up.
Yeah, exactly. But it was really for something else. So we see them, in the kitchen, dining area, living room area, and they're like cooking dinner, and Nick is looking through his records, and she sees that he has Joni Mitchell, and that kind of like sparks her interest. And while they're eating, we see Nick. She's like gushing over the steak. She's like really. She likes the steak. She's like, "This steak is so good," and she's like really like gushing over Paul for once. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, "Oh, you have." She's like, "You have quite the record collection." And he's like, "Oh, thanks." She's like, "You don't meet too many straight guys who like Joni Mitchell." And he's like, "You like Joni?" And she's like, "No, I only named my daughter after her." And he's like, "Shut the front door, my brother from another mother."
And they give a high five. Yeah.
So white.
It is
so white.
That's what I'm saying, but you don't want to acknowledge it.
I acknowledge it. I'm just saying it can be white and still be a lot of fun.
Sure.
And then she starts singing out of nowhere. She starts singing in California or something like that. And the kids and Jules are like, "What the hell?" Like, she never sings. Like, "What the hell?" Like, yeah. And Paul's like, "Cool." He's like into it. I think he's just happy that she's like showing him love for once. You know what I'm saying? So he's like, "I'm just going to go with this." And then Nick's like, "Oh, can I use your bathroom?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's straight down there." So she goes to the bathroom.
Here it comes. Yes.
So she goes to the bathroom. Typical bathroom usage.
Exactly. But then you see her washing her hands.
Yes, she's washing her hands, and then all of a sudden, she sees his brush sitting there.
Well, like she sees a hairbrush on the shelf right below the mirror.
Right, and she kind of notices there's some red hair stuck on the brush.
Yeah, and who else around there has red hair?
So she found that a little weird, and then she kind of snoops around and she looks in the trash can.
Well, she looks in the shower too.
Yeah, she looks in the shower. She looks in the trash can. There's like wad of red hair in there.
Yes.
So she's like, that's interesting. And so
so she keeps digging for more.
Yeah, she keeps digging for more, and then she checks out the bed, and she finds some kind of long red hair there.
Yeah.
That can only mean one thing.
It's like who else
he
has
banged
red?
Jessica Chastain. No.
Oh, come on.
No, he must be doing something with Jules, right?
Yes.
So, and then Nick comes back to the dinner table, and it's cool because we, as the audience, like, we can see something that only she knows, and they don't.
And exactly. They don't notice it.
Yeah. And so there's like an awkwardness that sets in there, and we see her kind of mentally like, okay, what the hell do I do?
You can see that her mind is somewhere else.
Yeah, and they're just like normal, like as in the beginning of the scene. They don't see that difference, and then then we cut, and but she's like zoning out right before that, and trying to think like, how did this happen? Kind of like you don't. It's cool that we don't see that. We just see her face kind of trying to process it. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
So they're back home, and Jules is brushing her teeth.
Well, before they go back home, didn't she actually end up having wine after all because of it? Or she didn't?
I guess so. Yeah, I think you're right. No, that's a good observation. Like,
because at first
she was cutting back.
Yeah, she was cutting back because I remember at first Paul offered her some wine when they first started dinner, but she's like, "Oh no, thanks." She's like, "Oh yeah,
not tonight."
Like I'll have to decline.
Yeah, and then
she's like, "I'll just stick to water."
And then I guess after that, then you see, no, that's a good observation.
Yeah,
that's really good. either I forgot about that or just forgot to put it down.
Yeah, like I guess she ended up pouring it herself or something like that.
Yeah, like she's like fuck it, kind of a sideways sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like wine is their therapy, kind of. They're like, hey, fuck this, I'm drinking wine. My life sucks ass, I'm drinking wine. So and then
the perfect excuse.
Yeah, exactly. So we see Jules brushing her teeth with the electric toothbrush before bed, and Nick kind of comes out of nowhere. And it's funny because Jules tells Nick, oh, like you and Paul were getting along like gangbusters, and then she just replies, "You're sleeping with him, aren't you?" And
where's this coming from?
I found some of your hair in the bathroom.
Oh, I got dirty from working in the yard, so I took a shower.
Did you take a nap too?
And then you can see that it cuts to them like having a dispute about it.
Yeah. And Joel says,
well, I needed to be...
Needed what? To be fucked?
Well, she was more like, it's like, you needed what? To get fucked?
Yeah, no, that was good. That's why you're the great actress.
Which never happened.
So they open the door, and then because they hear some like rustling or whatever, so they open the door, and Laser and Joni
were eavesdropping.
Yeah, they were listening to the whole thing. Yeah. And then I guess maybe the next day or something, Paul calls Joni, just to see how she's doing. I think he genuinely likes them. So he
really felt like he bonded with them.
Yeah.
But then so he calls her, and then when she realizes it's him, she's like, "You're such a phony."
Yeah, and he's kind of like, "What? Like I don't get what's going on." And she's like, "Sleeping with my mom? Like what the hell?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Fuck." And then she just hangs up on him. And he's like, "Ah!" Like you can see like the frustration on his face. And then he calls Jules, and he's like, "Hey, Jules," and she's like, "What?" And he's like, I'm thinking, just fuck it, let's go for it. Take the kids and run." Jules is like, "What the hell are you saying?" She thinks he's an idiot, and she just kind of hangs up. He's like left in the dust, kind of like, what the hell? Okay, what the hell do I do now? Like I've gotten so attached to all of you. It's like you just expect me to just, cut everything off now. And so we see they're having kind of like a going away party for Joni, right? Zosha Mamet is there, and Indian guy friend is there. When I think about it, there's a lot of people at the party. And they got a lot of extras for this.
Oh yeah, they did good.
Yeah, and I like when I have parties, like 2 people show up. This party has like 500 people.
Yeah, and we're not exaggerating. I've invited people over. Yeah, at most maybe 3 people show up, and that's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but they have a pretty big party, and then I think Joni, she kind of starts drinking, kind of using the situation as an excuse, like, hey, like I'm gonna start drinking, I'm gonna do my own thing. My mom does it, and we see the Indian kid. He's talking to Steven Spielberg's daughter, actually, Sasha Spielberg. I guess she acted for a bit, and she's in this movie, and he's kind of talking to her, and Joni kind of walks up to him and like just starts making out with him, right? And the kid is kind of weirded out, He's like, okay, well, like, where'd that come from? Like, he didn't suspect that she liked him at all, and yeah, he's just, I could see he just kind of weirded him out, and I don't think they, progressed. Like, I don't think they like went after this as a relationship.
No, I don't think so.
It was just kind of a weird random makeout, and, I think that was it. So we cut to see Jules sleeping on the couch, and and Nick comes out, and she tells Nick like, "Oh, my back hurts," and you almost suspect Nick to be like, "Oh, come back to the bed," to like forgive her or something like that. And then Nick says, "Well, you can take some Advil." She doesn't let her back in the bed, like she's still in the doghouse.
Well, the thing is that she first went there and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get an extra pillow."
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Okay." She's like, so what, your back hurts? And then she's like, yeah. She said just sleeping on the couch is just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
he's
that's
like,
when
well, you should take some Advil.
she's like, why don't you take some Advil?
Yeah, like, yeah, it's just funny that she's not gonna forgive her anytime soon, you know. And then Mia comes back, and they can tell that she's drunk, you know. So they're like, "You're drunk. Like, we can, you know." We can
Well,
tell.
at first they were kind of like, hey, you're back pretty late.
Yeah.
But then, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and they're, you know, she's kind of talking like, "What? Like, what's your problem or whatever?" And they're like, "You're drunk."
But at first they were kind of like, have you been drinking? And she's like, no, I haven't. It's like, they're like, wait, did you drive here yourself? He's like, yeah, I did. So what?
Yeah. And then they're like, well, you're okay, you're drunk. And then she's like, yeah, you should know. She tells
to Nick. Yeah.
And then she's like, you know, aghast at that.
Yeah.
At that, you know, talking back to her, you know. And Joni's like, I did everything you wanted. I got into every school I applied to.
It's like, I had straight A's.
Yeah. And she's like, now you can show everyone what a perfect lesbian family you have. You know. I want to have a perfect lesbian family someday.
Okay.
I think we should all aspire to have perfect lesbian family.
Well, I don't think any family is perfect, but we can at least try to make it as best as possible.
Yeah.
And let's not force being a lesbian to anybody. That should just come naturally.
Right. Just kind of funny how she says that. So then we see Paul, and he's like doing his farm to table shit, and you know, like they kind of check in. We kind of check in on him, and that's what he's still doing. And you know, the family, Nick, Jules, and the kids are kind of having like a final dinner before they take her to college the next day. Right?
Yeah, and then they hear a knock on the door, or at least Joni is the one who hears a knock on the door.
Yeah, and you know, just conveniently, she's like, "I'll get it," and so she gets it from the dinner table and goes there, and he sees it's Paul, and he's like, "Hey, like, want to apologize for the whole thing," you know, like, and I like the angle like that they shoot him from. It's like kind of low, you know. I just really like that angle that Lisa chose for that, and I think Paul Ruffalo, he's really good in this scene. Like, his acting is really great. And, you know, he's saying, I want to apologize. And then Nick comes to the door, and she's like, you have got some balls. She's pissed off at him. And he's like, hey, like, you know, he's trying to back off. But she's like, this is not your family. You're a fucking interloper. Which sounds like Paul Banks' band, right?
Oh, God. That has nothing to do with it. Don't listen to him, please.
So she shuts down Paul, and
just because you can kind of pull those letters out of that word doesn't mean you should be mentioning it.
Okay. So she shuts down Paul. Speaking of Paul, and you see him like, you know, they slam the door on him, and you see him through like a little crack in the window. It's like
between the curtains.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I mean, I kind of feel bad for him a little bit. You know, like, even Laser walks away.
But he shouldn't have gotten involved with one of their moms.
No, but you know, it's like a two-way street. You know what I'm saying? He's like, she's just as much to blame as he is.
But he should have taken the chance to back off because he knew it was wrong too, not just her.
Yeah. So Paul walks back to his motorcycle, and he's like pissed off at himself. You know?
Yeah, well, because you forgot to mention that. You know, in between the curtains through the window, he saw that Laser was still sitting at the dinner table, and he waved at him, kind of like, you know, trying to get his attention and say hi to him. But Laser just looked at him angrily, and he gets off the table and walks away.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was referring to. Even he walks away, you know.
Yeah.
So Paul walks back to his motorcycle, and he's pissed off at himself. He's like kind of frustrated, and he throws his helmet at the motorcycle, you know, out of frustration, and that's the last you see of him in the movie. You don't see any more Ruffalo in the movie. we see the family kind of watching TV together, and Jules turns off the TV and goes to the front of the TV to take center stage and talks to the family, and she says, marriage is tough. She does a good acting job here. Sometimes you hurt the ones you love the most, and I don't know why. Maybe if I read more Russian novels. I don't know what the hell that has to do with anything. But her acting there, like how she starts to cry a little, that's really good. And Annette Bening, too, is really good listening to her. You know what I'm saying? Really good acting. And then the next morning, Joni wakes up, and it's like, she can see this is like, now she can escape this little hell that they've built.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
For
it's
sure.
like, she kind of takes a deep breath, like, okay, this is like the first day of the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, you can see her. She's taking out all her stuff. To put in the car to drive off to her new dorm at her new college.
Right. Yeah. So, and we see them take the long drive to the college. I mean, they said it's like a 9 or 8 hour drive. I don't know where the hell this college is. They don't really mention it, But if they're in LA,
that must be like way up somewhere in Northern California, even way past San Francisco.
Yeah. I don't know
because for them to do like an 8-9 hour drive, that seems pretty long.
Yeah. And they're in the car, and I like the little score there actually, the little guitar. Like, it makes me sad when I hear it, even though I don't think that was the intention of the composer or the director. Like, I think they're just like, okay.
No, but I think it is supposed to be a bittersweet moment.
Okay, yeah, I feel sad when I hear that score. There's just a nostalgia to it that makes me sad. It makes me think of 2010 and how long ago that was at this point. And the music that was done by Carter Burwell, right? Who did one of our other favorite movies of all time, right?
Yeah. Which was...
Did he do Goofy?
Yes, he did do Goofy movie. He did a few other ones, which he also did the first 2 of the Twilight Saga, which I thought was really weird.
Yeah, that's kind of lame, but at least he has this and Goofy movie, which are 2 masterpieces.
Yes, and there was another one, but I can't think of it at the top of my head.
Right. Carter Burwell, good job.
Yes, and speaking of Goofy movie, we need to talk about that movie sometime.
Yes, we will. After we wrap up Women's Month, we can do all of our greatest hits and stuff like that, Sure. So we're going to do a shitload after that. It's going to be an avalanche.
If time permits.
Yeah. So they get to the school, and they help her carry her stuff, and...
surprise jump by our cat.
I just wanted to pet him because it looks so fuzzy. So they get to the school, they help her carry her stuff in, and they're kind of arguing or something, and Joni was like, I just want to be alone for a second.
Well, the thing is that they're trying to help her unpack. That's really what it is, but they all try to help her at the same time, and she seems pretty overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
So she's just like, I can't do it myself. Like, after a few times that she insists that she'll do it herself.
Right.
But then the last time that she tells him, she's like, really, I can do it myself. Like, she's more, like, loud and aggressive about and aggressive about it because But then they're like, okay, that's fine, and they walk out of her dorm. Yeah,
and so she kind of soaks in the environment now. She kind of was like looking around. This is going to be my home for the next few years, And she kind of soaks it up. And then, like, she gets that feeling in them, like the way, you might feel when, you're expecting someone to be around you, and then all of a sudden they're not coming to you, and you're like, oh, where's that person, or where's my cat, you know what I'm saying? You're like, where are they? She kind of gets that lonely feeling again in her stomach. Yeah. And then, so she's like, oh, okay, where are they now? And then, so she's looking around for them, and, it's like she's having a hard time finding them. She goes outside the campus, and she goes, like, near the street, and then she sees the car pull up, and
of course, like, she's like, why are they driving? Like, why are they driving off?
Yeah, and they're like, oh, we had to move the car, Yeah. And she's like, oh, I thought you guys left or something, and they're like we would say without...
Yeah, it's like, we wouldn't leave without saying goodbye
Yeah, first. Exactly, yeah. So then they get out of the car, and they hug and say their goodbyes. The moms start to cry. and she cries, and then they kind of just let her go, and they go back in the car and drive off, right?
Yeah.
And then there's like a subtle thing where you see, it has that nice score, like I'm saying, and you see Nick and Jules kind of make eye contact as they're driving, and Laser says,
I don't think you guys should break up.
And she's like, yeah, why is that?
Because you're too old.
And they kind of laugh it off. And then you see them like hold hands. You know what I'm saying? It's like they kind of forgave each other. You know what I'm saying? They kind of like, okay, we got past this whole Paul thing, and now our daughter's in college and we won't be seeing her for a while, so like, let's just come back together, and so them holding hands is a real like symbolic moment. And then, they kind of ride off into the sunset. And that's the end of the movie. And then we hear MGMT, the youth, kick in on the soundtrack. Which
okay, here comes some cringe. Just letting you know.
which I love that song. Yeah, and, I think it was the perfect song for that time. And I was upset when I first saw it because I actually wanted to use that song in the movie. I wanted to use that song. It was going to be at the end credits, and the movie is kind of based on it's like 24 hours, kind of leading up to Obama's election. That's what the movie was going to be. It was going to be, somewhat based on us, I guess, maybe that day. Like they go on some sort of little mini adventure. At the end of the day, they're at a small concert, and the band playing is like, "Hey, Obama's president," and it's kind of a nice little celebratory moment. And then as they leave the concert, we hear the youth kick in. That
if you hear me complaining, know that Kevin is full of cringe, and it's a little too much when he does this thing. And also, if there's anyone else who can agree with me, it's his niece. Well, she's my niece too, and the fact that we're married, but yeah, she can definitely agree, and she would be the first one to say that before me, actually.
Yeah. So, but I think that was the perfect song for it, though. The youth is starting to change. Our youth starting to change.
Okay, like you're getting a little too deep here. Like, see, that's part of the cringe.
Like it really fit, and that's another band that played that year too, right?
Yes, they did.
2010 Coachella. So I mean, everything was like in the zeitgeist. Is what I'm really trying to say. You know what I'm saying? The music, it was right at that time, and it was perfect for the movie. I mean, can you think of a better song to end that?
Looking back, probably not.
Yeah.
I've thought about it, but no, I think they did choose a pretty good song. Even though when I look back, I'm not into MGMT as much as I was right around that time. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like
you changed. You grew up.
Yeah, well, honestly, I think over time, that kind of music didn't age that well for me. Like there's stuff that's way older, and I can still listen to it, but that, I don't know, it kind of just brings me back to my youth, and it was a really weird era for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love that music still. Like I still listen to those old songs from those old indie classics. You know what I'm saying, in the 2000s, and reminds you of my youth. You know what I'm saying? Reminds you of when we met. If it wasn't for that music, we wouldn't have met.
That's true.
If it wasn't for MGMT, we probably wouldn't have met.
I mean, it wasn't just them. There were a lot.
No, it wasn't just them, but they're a big part of it, though. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
Yeah.
And I was telling Frank this on the other podcast that, to me, those songs still hold up. I can still listen to those great indie songs. They're just as good as songs from the 70s, 80s. Like, if you pick the best cream of those crops, like from the 60s, 70s, 80s, to me, Someday by the Strokes is just as good as some shit.
I think the Strokes is different. I think you're like hitting another. To me, I feel like the Strokes are different. I can still listen to them. And some other bands, I don't know, it's kind of like, Maybe I'll enjoy it in the moment that it's being played if someone else is playing it, but I wouldn't go out of my way and listen to it on my own.
Okay. Well,
I mean, we can all beg to differ.
right. Different strokes for different folks. And of course, like I said, the music was good because the music supervisor was from KCRW, which is a great radio station based out of LA. You can listen to it online if you're not familiar with it. Like I said earlier, I mean, it's too bad Mia isn't doing more movies. I'd love to see her more. I think she's great. Yeah. Annette Bening plays a really good lesbian. That's like just, something that she's pretty good at.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't just point at the fact that she can play a good lesbian.
Well,
I
she's
think
a great actress,
in general, I think she's a good actress. I wouldn't just point that out specifically.
Right. Okay. Yes,
because I don't want to have to start like any stereotypes or any other kind of potential typecasting.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, I mean, this film received a lot of acclaim from critics. I kind of didn't realize it, and especially Bening got a lot of praise for her performance. Rotten Tomatoes, 92% of critics.
Yeah, and the only reason why you know the Rotten Tomatoes 92% from critics is because that play that we usually the game that we usually play of guess the Rotten Tomatoes ratings.
Yeah,
that's how you know it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean,
which actually, if we never mentioned it before, when we're by ourselves, we tend to play this thing a lot of guess the rating on Rotten Tomatoes from both critics and the audience, which we would have liked to have it happen where we could have made like a card game out of it, but actually, it was actually done way before we could even do anything.
Well, let's just do videos on it. Like, I think if we do videos, we can get views and monetize it. I think it would be cool. Like, we can do a podcast.
I mean, do you really think we could monetize it?
Let's
look at how we're going with this podcast.
Let's just try it, okay?
Okay. Not to be pessimistic, but we're starting very small here.
Well, I mean, slowly but steadily, So, yeah, I mean, it got a lot of praise. It says the site's consensus from Rotten Tomatoes is that worthwhile as both well-acted ensemble pieces and as a smart, warm statement on family values, The Kids Are Alright is remarkable. Roger Ebert, I guess, kind of liked it. He gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
He said, The Kids Are Alright centers on a lesbian marriage, but is not about one. It's a film about marriage itself, an institution with challenges that are universal. Just imagine, you're expected to live much, if not all, of your married life with another adult. We're not raised for this. So that's what he said. Annette Bening won the Golden Globe for this that year for musical comedy. And the film won also the Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture Musical or Comedy.
Yeah.
Julianne Moore was nominated, but didn't win Best Actress, and Lisa Cholodenko and Stuart Blumberg were nominated for Best Screenplay. Moore and Bening were both nominated for BAFTAs for Best Actress in a Leading Role. Ruffalo was also nominated for a BAFTA. Yeah, it got a lot of praise. And then Kids Are Alright was listed on many critics' top 10 lists, with a lot of it choosing it as number 1 film. So Michael Phillips of Chicago Tribune chose it number 1 film. Elizabeth Weitzman, New York Daily News, chose it number 1. Rafer Guzman chose it number 1 with Newsday. And it's on a lot of top 10 lists from that year. So you know that it did something. A.O. Scott had it 5th on this list. Roger Ebert had it 9th. I'm kind of just mentioning the critics of note here. Yeah, it got a lot of props. The screenplay was ranked the 21st best American screenplay of the 21st century on IndieWire, with Jude Dry praising the script as a witty and artful take on contemporary family life, bitingly clever and unafraid to take unexpected turns. So yeah, and as of 2025, when we're doing this podcast, this is the last film that Cholodenko has done.
Yeah, in reality, she doesn't have a very vast filmography.
But I almost look at it like she looks at it like this is her, her masterpiece. You know what I'm saying? She kind of looks at it like, how am I going to top that? You know what I'm saying? As far as critical acclaim, I think it sold all right. I think it made decent money. I think she's like, this is like my grand statement. I think maybe that's what's holding her back. I mean, I think she's directed some TV a little bit, a few episodes here and there, but the fact that this is her last film, that's 15 years ago at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's kind of a long time. So, I mean, hopefully she does something else, but, if she doesn't, this is a great final film of hers, I think. And with the whole sperm thing, I don't know if they're still really accepting much sperm nowadays. I know there's the weird documentary on the Dutch guy on Netflix who like donated all this sperm around the world.
Yeah, that's quite a level of abuse there. I actually would consider that a crime. I'm surprised this guy is not behind bars.
Yeah, well, we'll see. His story is still unraveling. Anything else you want to say about Kids Are Alright?
Well, I do want to point out, because I wasn't sure if other people were familiar with this movie that I know personally. That if they were either familiar with it or if they had liked it, if they ever saw it. But actually, at my job, one time I went into the office of one of our managers, and I saw that she had the DVD on her desk, and it made me wonder, how does she get a hold of this, and has she actually even seen it? So, yeah, because she actually strikes me as kind of like this proper old school Mexican woman, but yeah.
Well, I guess you never know. Alright. Kids Are Alright.
Yeah.
Is part of Briterion Bollection. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Peace out. Bye.